Let's play the national anthem. Thank you.
Kyle, sorry. I think we can't hear the sound.
Share audio, please.
Oh, share with audio.
Mga kababayan, ang pambansang awit ng Pilipinas. Kayang mag-ibig, ewas ng silanganan, alam ng puso, sa titik mo'y buhay. Lupang hinirang, kuya ka ng magiting, sa manlulupin, di ka pasisigil, sa nagagang tutok sa simoy at sa langit mong pagaw. Ay hinatang tulad, awit sa pagkayang minamahal, ang isang ng matawad mo'y tagumpay na nag-iindig. Ang bituin at araw niya kailan pa may di magtitingin. Luman ang araw ng walhagin pagsinta, mo'y langit sa piling mo. Ang hindi kaya na pagkay mga api, ang mamatay ng dahil sa'yo.
Okay, welcome everyone. Before we begin, may we please request the participants to mute their microphones? Okay, thank you. So, thank you for coming today to our Emerging Scholars Forum with the topic of Sexual Orientation Prejudice. I am Irish Jane Dalusan, your moderator for today. We hope that we can provide everyone with not just an informative webinar, but also a space for conversation on our positionalities and even marginalization. Today, we have two emerging scholars who will share their research expertise on sexual orientation prejudice. After their presentations, we are looking forward to your participation during the open forum. We have dedicated considerable time and space for it. As we officially begin, we would like to acknowledge the Southeast Asian Media Studies Association, or SEAMSA, for making this forum possible. To officially welcome us for today's webinar, we are giving the virtual space to SEAMSA's Assistant Editor and Head of the Special Interest Group on Popular Culture, Dr. Maria Guineta Pusta. Associate Professor Maria Guineta Pusta is a distinguished scholar, researcher, and writer of published books and journals on media and communication studies, a communication specialist in corporate and media affairs, an expert in broadcast communication and advertising and marketing, an academic program evaluator, a community servant leader, and a research conference speaker. May we now call on Dr. Pusta.
Thank you, Irish, for that introduction. You see, numerous controversies and debates have taken place of late on sexual orientations and prejudices that have caught our attention, and yet rarely have scholars provided concrete solutions on how to deal with it. It should be noted that whatever category within the purview of the LGBTQ+, all center within gender identity, described by many as the inner sense of being, or a person's self-concept. And because sexual development is paramount to human development, this webinar was conceptualized, whether it be a boy-to-boy or a girl-to-girl relationship, or queer representations or otherwise, our two emerging scholars will shed light on sexual orientations prejudices. That being said, welcome participants and enjoy the discourse in this webinar.
Okay, thank you very much, Doc Gwen. We will indeed get a lot of insights for today. And let us now, we are now ready for our first speaker. So allow me to introduce. Kyle Patrick de Guzman is the current program chair for education and liberal arts of the College Department of Our Lady of Perpetual Succor College, Marikina. Currently, he is a graduate student in his thesis writing stage, taking an MA in Communication at Far Eastern University, Manila. His leadership abilities shine as he serves as the president of the FEU Graduate Studies Student Council. His current research focuses on multimodal critical discourse analysis, specifically looking at the queer representation in the Sari Sari story comics. His research interests are diverse, covering gendered spaces, LGBTQIA+ representations in various media and literature, spatial studies, and development communication studies. Beyond academics, he advocates for disability and queer inclusive spaces and representations in green spaces. He channels his passion through his research work, content writing, and speaking engagements like this, aiming to create positive change in society. As a plus, he recently bagged the first best paper under the faculty category in the recently concluded second Framework Asia Pacific Communication Conference. The virtual floor is yours, Kyle.
Okay, thank you so much, Miss Irish. So, let me just remove this for a while. So, okay, I hope that you get to see my screen. Okay, good. And I hope that I'm quite audible. Okay, so
Kyle,
yes,
Kyle,
I'm
it's
sorry,
still
go on.
black. It's white.
yes, yes,
Oh,
yes.
okay, tama,
Okay,
tama.
so,
Yeah,
okay,
it's quite
let me start. Okay. So we are here to talk about the invisibility politics in queer media community and fandom. And of course, like what I discussed with my students, it's important and it's imperative for us to try to evaluate whether this visibility is really an inclusive take or not. So to start with, I have this game at hand. So this specific game would somehow give us an idea of what I wish to refer to. Okay, so everyone, you can try to put your comments through our chat box. So you just state there left or right, or if you could name the person directly, do so. Okay, so who do you think is a member of LGBTQIA plus? Yeah, okay. So let's wait for the answers. Okay. And so you can write left or right and then try to write the name if you know the person. Okay. So let me move on to the next one. How about this? Who do you think is queer? Is it Ian Pangilinan or Paolo Pangilinan? Or both? Okay. Okay, that's nice. That's nice. Next, who do you think is the top or bottom? So we're trying to make sense on how people tend to perceive people just based on what is present. Okay. Yes, Gaga. It's I know it's already like it's just 10, but the discussion is very a nighttime discussion. Okay. How about this one? Okay. So I think in your head, you're trying to question and trying to somehow answer my question. But for us to really delve into this kind of discussion, I want to move into this kind of explanatory aspect. You know, in terms of playing the game between the two, it's actually not a hunch game, but rather it's a stereotype game. Because in reality, we're doing stereotypes every day. The hunches that we do to infer whether someone is a nice person, if you think that a person is a bitch, if a person is approachable, it's all based from our informed hunches. And if you had your communication theory or theory classes, sometimes theoretically speaking, all of our hunches were based from our belief system, based from our experiences, and this was all derived from reality. Okay, so it's all about patterns. The reason why we get to state that someone is a nerd, someone is gay because of the way they perform, the way they act, the way they dress. So, but the thing is, in this kind of game, everything was framed. I chose purposefully the images that would directly describe this person, depending on how you infer to them. So again, it's all based from your experiences. I'm not saying that there is a right or wrong answers in this kind of game. Okay, so let's move on. And all of this kind of perception is something that we can ascribe to media, or something that we um, somehow learn from media. And maybe you're asking, how come that, as if I'm saying that people are passive? You know, media is something that we get to depend on. We get to gather our information, which is actually necessary for us to survive in this world. And part of it, the problem with media is the problems within it. Okay. So from the media in itself, I wish to focus on the following. Okay. The concept of visibility. And the reason why I am opening this kind of topic about visibility, because it doesn't necessarily mean that what is seen in media is entirely what is real. And sometimes what is present, we should also ask what is not present. Okay. So that leads me to creating this so-called invisibility and visibility politics. Okay. And specifically on the queer representations present in media. Of course, when I talk about visibility, what is written out there, what you heard, what you've read, all encapsulates biases. Okay, so does in the production aspect. So in this given sense, media in all forms has immense power to shape ideas, the way we perceive someone, the way we tend to consume something based from advertisements, based from what is present. However, it is important that visibility may look inclusive, but in terms of this depiction or portrayal, how sure are we that we are well represented? So now I wish to move forward to what we so-called boys love. I think everyone is familiar with boys love, right? But the thing about boys love, may it be about Thai, Japan, or what other aspects, specifically in the Philippines, should I say, the context of the Philippines, there is what we call misreading of boys love. Okay, so with the misreading of boys love, there is this specific notion, according to Thomas Baudinay, that there is a creative misreading in terms of this kind of text. So the creative misreading leads for people to create their own interpretations. And of course, once a text is out there, it's open to interpretation. It's something that we cannot control. Okay, specifically based from the context as what is present or what is embedded in the symbols, and knowing that it depends on the context that you're in, how we interpret these kinds of symbols. So with the misreading of boys love, I always try to ask myself whenever I'm reading, writing queer text, whether the following is present, or I always ask these questions to formulate better how I would understand a given text. Nasaan ang mga bakla? Where are the gays? Sino ang mga bakla or gay? Who are the gays? At gaano sila kabakla or gay, and how gay are they, is very important for us to ask whether the visibility or invisibility politics is present, how it is being produced, and how it is being consumed. Okay? Now, I there is something that we need to delve on, communication theory-wise, media theory-wise, or culture theory-wise, the so-called reception and representation aspect. Because we all know that in terms of representation, what is present out there creates a stereotype. And sometimes we lean into the stereotypes because that's the pattern or that's the usual formula present. And the way we try to read them is all based from what is already inferred or what is present at the back of our head. And that's something problematic. And one thing that I wish to point out here, a lot of communication scholars would directly look at the problem with traditional theories, specifically with cultivation, media effects theory, that it's too linear, that people are no longer passive. But people tend to see media as reality, and that's the problem. Despite the scholars saying that people are no longer passive, it's quite evident in the social media space because sometimes people try to accept what is present out there. And cultivation theory is still something that is applicable. Okay. So with this, I wish to further delve into how specific social media contents tend to normalize or legitimize various stereotypes based on the content's design and presentation. So let me delve on to boys love because I wish to be more specific on what I wish to refer to. So boys love genre originated from Japan, and it was stated by Mizoguchi, okay, one of the scholars in um, gay studies, specifically on boys love studies in Japan, that boys love genre was actually created by women for the consumption of women. And based from Mizoguchi herself, so there's actually a different timeline, right? She was able to state this based from her paper or historical essays about boys' love, and she actually saw the transformative capabilities of the genre, advocating for realistic homosexual narratives and struggles. But that's something that we need to delve with, because despite Mizoguchi seeing the capacity of the genre itself to provide the different narratives of the LGBTQIA, or what we refer to as LGBTQA community, there's something that we need to delve further, not just in Japan, in Thailand, in China, but how the localization or globalization of this genre tend to really make sense of the narrative of representation. So focusing on the boys love genre in the Philippines. So as we all know that we are, I think some of us were consuming boys love already. And the thing about boys love, most of our first consumption is from Thailand. But I'm happy that during the time of the pandemic, there is an emergence of boys love. Okay. And that emergence of boys love actually provided visibility to the gay community. And specifically, the reason why I'm referring to it as a visibility to the gay community is all because in the past historical studies in the Philippines about media, specifically on portrayals and representations about gay or the bakla, we're focusing on media and in television, should I say, television serials like My Husband's Lover and others. And the thing is, most of them focuses from the very, very far end, focuses on the parloristang bakla. Okay, not until My Husband's Lover came in to provide a different notion of a gay narrative or portrayal between two masculine um, individuals. And now, the thing is, there is a shift from the parloristang bakla to the masculine gay, but that's the problem. Because despite what they refer to as an inclusive representation or the emergence of visibility, we need to also question whether the boys love present or the contents of boys love being shared in the Philippines really represents the LGBTQIA plus community, or they're just giving a different notion of stereotypical representations of gay men, like similar to what you are seeing right now. They're all sort of an eye candy. When I say an eye candy, they are being objectified based from their physique, okay? Being handsome, being white, having this masculinity present. And because there's so many representation on masculine gay, we need to account also that they are perpetuating something. And whether it perpetuates something leaning to the masculinity, we need to also question, um, didn't we have enough already about masculine representation? Why don't we create the other representations and narrative of the stories that that are really present in the LGBTQIA plus community? So now, I wish to present this study of mine, Nag-usap, Kinilig, Nabasa, a multimodal critical discourse analysis of gay representation in Carlo Victoriano's online comic series, Sari Sari Story. So to give you an idea, The very title in itself, no, the sari-sari. Well, in the Philippines, we have two terminologies for sari-sari. In English, it's variety, and in another term for it is everywhere. That's why the word sari-sari is marami, or marami kang nakikita kung saan. And that's similarly to the bakla or the gay community, because in terms of variety, there's different ways and means to call them. Silahis, bakla, paminta, bisexual, and they are everywhere. They are the police, the managers, the teachers, the writers, and they can be the person beside you or you yourself, right? Or the person watching this webinar. So the thing is, they are found occupying various positions in the Philippine economic and social domains. This is actually stated by Baitan and Garcia. They can be seen roaming around just like the heterosexual male and female. Okay. Now, the reason why I studied this specific comic series because of this specific person. So Emmanuel Victoriano is an advocate of gay rights movement, and of course, this is not the numbers of his followers, and it's actually increasing as we speak. Okay, we can infer to it like it's more than 8,000, it's more than 16,000, it's 80,000 and such. So we could see that there is prominence. There's really an influence, and specifically that Carlo Victoriano created the different OBB, the different digital art present in what we are already consuming with Bagani, Till I Met You, and of course the Ang Provinciano. And along with that, the Drag Race Philippines. So the Sari story in the Pen Lab, okay, in the webtoon comics, there is 28 episodes, and it actually garnered 1 million reads already. And this is referred to ang aklat na puro kalat. Okay. Now, the way I analyzed it is through MCDA, because I look at I deconstructed the ideology, the power and representations present in the text in itself, the linguistic, visual, and interplay on how the text portrays the social practices and contexts of the gay or the characters in itself. So here is a sample episode. So I provided the Filipino and the English, and we could directly make sense that there's a different sense of humor, because in the Filipino, we are very particular to puns. While in English, it's really hard to do so, because in our language, just repeating the sounds of the letter could create implicatures already. Okay, so I hope that you get to understand what is present in our screen. And now, another sample episode here is to show Dipper and Sean's interaction. So Dipper, the mascot, went into the locker, and then suddenly there is a shift of framing. Okay, the shift of framing present here is the shift of the framing here focuses on not to the actor Dipper, but rather on Sean's reaction. And we could see directly that despite of the censorship, there is still meaning implied. So now I wish to focus on how they have captioned the top and the bottom in the comic series. Okay. So we could see that the label bottom here, which would mean, pants, because in the section of menswear, Sean is actually folding, okay, the pants. So in the next part of the frame, okay, Mon went in, okay, and offered Sean a help. So here the label stop focuses on Mon, or directly points to Mon, okay. So with this, we need to go into a participatory reading, a closure reading, that we need to go back to the first frame for us to really understand what is embedded in the context. So here, the bottom pants, okay, the bottom pants here is more of focusing not on the pants, but of course to Sean. Okay, so with this, we could directly say that there is this specific captioning of the top and the bottom, despite of what is being portrayed here are masculine gay individuals. Okay, And here, knowing that they are inside the Sari-Sari Mall, okay, the Sari-Sari Mall or the mall in itself as the setting of the story, we could directly infer that the way they display their queerness is explicit or directly implied in all of the places. So the Sari-Sari Mall becomes a narrative tool through which the characters explore their identities within the context of their working and social environment. So still, it shows that the characters that we have here, the gay characters or the queer characters that we have here, is open to expressing their gayness. So being sexual, teasing, and such. So as we can directly see here with the characters, okay, Dipper, Sean, and Mon, um, they seem to be all masculine, specifically Dipper being part of the bear community, and being part of the bear community would directly lead us to understanding that first, if to give you an understanding, the bear community tends to have this facial body hair and godly body, perceived as hypermasculine, exhibit diverse sexual behaviors, and heightened sexual appeal, even amidst potential low self-esteem. Okay, so with the characterization of Deeper, how Carlo Victoriano was able to write the comics in itself, the characterization of Deeper here is very polyamorous and has a low self-esteem, which actually accords to the bear community. Now, Shan here, in terms of gender expression, he is very masculine, very effective or expressive towards Mon and Deeper. Passive lets Mon and Deeper say and do what they wish. And the thing is, he is a bottom based from the analysis that I did, the reading that I did. The reason for this is all based from the desk research that I have gone through and understanding that the effectivity or the effective emotional quotient of Sean here, the expressiveness, being soft, being demure at the time, is leaning to the feminine side. So we refer to him, the character, as a hybrid gay global. Okay. The next, Mon, specifically having facial hair, okay, being assertive, directly teases Sean, has the physique of facial hair and body build, okay. So Mon here is top, specifically the aggressiveness present with teasing Sean, the way he presents sexes or the sex codes, okay. So Mon here represents the broader gay global. Now, we could directly make sense that based from all of the analysis that I did, it's not really sari-sari at all. Because again, from the definition that we have at the very start, sari-sari would mean everywhere and has variety or variation. But that's not present because sari-sari here is not in terms of variations, or it's not variety at all. Because the three main gay characters, Sean, Mon, and Deeper, they were negatively stereotyped, being hypersexual, polyamorous tendencies, and they are all masculine. Okay? So therefore, we could say that Carlo Victoriano, despite of being a gay activist, claiming that the comic serial that he did is for representation, the linguistic visual performance and spatial modes sustained and maintained negative ideologies towards the narratives or the portrayals of the queer stories. Okay? So from the BL, I wish to focus now on or lead us to understanding the fandom present or the BL fandom. Okay? So understanding BL fandom, of course, before we got our own Pinoy boys love, as they refer to, we are already part of the system, being a fandom of the Thailand and the other boys love from our from other countries. So from all of this collection of boys love, there is what we refer to as fetishization. Okay, maybe it's hard for you to understand what fetishization means, but I will try to deconstruct it here. So women consuming men-to-men stories fetishizes the gay portrayals or representation. And maybe you're asking, How was I able to state that? Okay. Um, Going to this very sample, we can directly look at it that they're both masculine, of course, and there's already a chemistry present just with the poster. The representation present here, based from the fetishization, okay, going back to Marx, okay, Karl Marx, the representation then tend to be objectified. Okay, so the representation is now an object. That's the thing about objectification. Okay, so from the representation or the person, we then see them as an object now. Okay, so from the object, or when the representation becomes an object, it becomes a commodity. Okay, so when I refer to as commodity, um, they are now something that we can consume, and this is what we refer to as representation commodification. The representation commodification here would state that the genre has transformed into a commodity crafted to cater to the desires of its consumers, primarily women, rather than serving as a platform to amplify their narratives of male homosexuals and foster emancipation. When I say emancipation, it's to liberate or get out from that stereotypical notions of the system. So the fetishization being as a means of commodification of the representation, this all lead us to another set of paradigms, specifically on political economy. Okay, the fan service. Okay, and for you to understand fan service, I really did my best to explain it using a framework. So I'll present you my own framework, okay, of understanding what fan service is. So we have the fandom. The fandom creates a demand. The demand tends to be an action or a project. Okay, then they will try to present it in in a social media platform that producers get to gather data from to know the proper formula that would lead them to generate income, and then the producer would create a command or employ specific actors to do it. Again, the actors that are employed here are specific to what the fandom demands. Now, when the actors perform, the fandom then consumes the performance. Okay, and from this whole spectrum of the framework, it is all part of the capitalization process already. When I say that it's already part of the capitalization process or system, from the demands to the providence of the command to the performance and the consumption, it all leads to capitalization. And again, going back, it's a political economy system. It's a loop already. Okay. As I have stated in my class before with base and superstructure, for us to understand how something in the cultural industry tend to be well consumed and well produced all the time, the formulas, okay, it all leads to this kind of system. Okay. So the reason for getting the same formula, the reason why we cannot get out from that hegemonic male representation is all because of this kind of thing. Okay, this kind of system. It's all becoming a loop. So we could directly state that what we are consuming is not produced by the media, but rather we are the one producing it, because this is what we want. And given that it's the leading system based from the quantifiable and qualifiable data, that is what is being produced in the media. Okay, so in the end, they trying to make it look like it's inclusive, but it's not. We're just consuming ourselves. Okay, so now let me move on to what we refer to as the community. I really find it funny for me to capture the word communication and unity at the same time. So to delve with the word community, okay, communication unity, let's delve on to the following. Okay, I wish to focus on the queer community in itself. So we have the following geolocation application, the Grinder and the Blue. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but I am. It's similar to Tinder and Bumble, but this geolocation application tends to cater us, the LGBTQIA plus community, specifically the gay male. Okay, So the purpose of the purpose of this crafting of social media applications is to unite. Okay. But the thing is, that's the that's the goal of the application or the company, but not of its users. Okay. So now the thing about this thing, Grinder was actually created solely to create a community for those who are not out, for those who are discreet. So that's the purpose why they created this geolocation application for people to meet, for people to have an exchange of discourse or discussion. But the users was able to create another functionality of the application in itself. So it became a hookup site, a dating site, and so on. So their performance inside of that given application is all based on how they wish to consume it. Okay. So there is this so-called hashtag pas sa halata for our foreign viewers, okay, audience. Pas sa halata is similarly to state that no to fem or no to feminine. This very notion is actually present in the gay dating application culture, where the masculine gay homosexuals tend to choose who they wish to interact with or have sex with. So specifically, they are looking for the discreet only or masculine. Hindi pwede yung nagko-cross-dress or they don't like people who are cross-dressing. Specifically, okay? Feminine, the practice of cross-dressing. And this is what Dr. Labor, okay, referred to as othering within the gay dating community. The othering present within the gay dating community, knowing that they are marginalized, the LGBTQIA plus community is marginalized, there is still othering inside of it. Okay, the othering present there is where, despite of how we try to create a community, we are trying to exclude or to alienate another subgroups inside of it. And as we can see, um, the gay community is comprised mostly of gay homosexual men. We rarely get to have narratives coming from the lesbians or the female homosexuals, and that's quite alarming, really, because in the concept of othering, okay, the main concept of othering, there is what I refer to as the selective homophobia, okay, internally, and that's a problem. A lot of people would say that um, there's no other problem being faced by LGBTQIA plus community other than their rights. Actually, they're wrong, because one of the main problems that we have internally in our community is the selective homophobia, specifically for choosing not to interact with with lesbians. So we refer to this as lesbophobia, femophobia, transphobia, biphobia, where people tend to create the stereotypical notions that, with bisexual, they get to they are sexually active to both male and female and such. And this selective homophobia, maybe some of you would say na that's preferences. I understand that you wish to see it as a preference, but the thing is, um in terms of making things inclusive, okay, making things inclusive, it's important that we don't try to exclude, because in terms of, love, you're not loving based from the physique or what you fetishize or objectify. You love, or you tend to cater because you just are attached with this community. Okay. So to wrap up my discussion with the LGBTQIA plus community, we could see directly that there is separate colors of the rainbow. Okay. And that's the problem of the community. Despite of them being in a rainbow, they are separated by specific colors that tend to represent the factions. So if I would try to make sense on how to make this as a unifying concept. It's better that we get to understand that our enemy is now not our differences. It is the fact that we cannot recognize that we are all the same. Okay. So with that, from the specific factioning of the colors, we all tend to become a gradient that unifies us, whoever we are, or wherever we are in the color of the rainbow being a gradient. And that would be all. So happy Pride Month to everyone, and thank you for listening to Invisibility Politics in Queer Media Community and Fandom.
Okay, thank you very much, Kyle. That's a beautiful discussion and a beautiful presentation, no, for for your piece, no. And I think we can agree, no, that Kyle was able to give us the breadth of the scope of the problem when it comes to sexual orientation prejudice. No? You started with the idea that the question of whether the audiences are active, no, or when in fact they can be still passive, no, because when we think of audiences as active, we take away the accountability from the media. And you were able to bring back the idea of the cultivation theory that maybe it's still alive after all, and the audiences are maybe more passive than ever, no. And at the same time, I realized that yes, there are attempts for alternatives like what you talked about the sari sari store and the BL, but then they may be representing other prongs for prejudice as well. And at the same time, towards the latter of your presentation, we realize that even within the community, no, there can be othering itself, no. So I really like the quote that you mentioned at the end, no. So thank you very much for that, Kyle. I suppose our participants have questions, but let's reserve that for the open forum later, okay? Let's now move on to our second speaker, no, my classmate. Noel Sahid Murad is an assistant professor of the Ramon V. Del Rosario College of Business at De La Salle University. He is a holder of the J. Romero and Associates Academic Chair in Advertising and the current practicum and thesis coordinator of the Department of Marketing and Advertising. At present, he is finishing his coursework for PhD in Communication at the University of the Philippines, Diliman. He is the research director for the Philippine Association for Media and Communication Research Incorporated, or PACMARI, and the president of the UPD College of Mass Communication Graduate Students Association, or GSA. To clarify, his master's degree is in marketing communications from De La Salle University, and he has a bachelor's degree in communication arts from University of Santo Tomas. His research interests include popular culture and fandom-based activism, queer studies, media representations, and social political advocacies, and the lived experiences of marginalized identities. He has upcoming book chapters in BTS, a critical interdisciplinary reader by scholarly publisher Duke University Press, and the Handbook of JAG by scholarly publisher Palgrave. Hello, Noel.
Hello, good morning, Irish. Thank you so much for that introduction. And good morning to all of my students from De La Salle University. Thank you so much for taking the time out on a Saturday morning to be here with us. I appreciate it a lot. Okay, so without further ado, let me share my screen and please do let me know if you can see
Yes, we can see it.
there. Okay, let me just. Okay, so this is a talk that I put together from 3 previous research papers that I presented at the International Communication Association conference 2 years ago in Paris and also last year in Toronto, Canada. So this is Barbie. So trans and gender non-conforming representations in drag shows and the sense-making of Filipino audiences. So before we go any further, I'd also like to wish everyone who is celebrating a very happy Pride Month. Of course, these are, it's very important for us to come together and celebrate all of these spaces and these events where we get to, acknowledge the existence of identities that do not conform to gender and sexual binaries. At the same time, we come together as a strong community fighting for our rights. So, to all my rainbow people out there, wishing you all a happy Pride Month. Okay, So in terms of the outline for the talk today, I'd like to take you through the following. First, we'll talk about popular culture and how it is a gender and development concern. Next, I'll take you through some of the queer representations that we've had in Pinoy media. So this is jumping off of from Kyle's presentation earlier. Then we'll talk about what is the inherent problem in media that forwards queer representations and also the social problems in Filipino society. Next, I'll jump to some of the insights I got from the 3 research papers I've done, and of course, talk about some key areas for future research. Okay, so this is, by the way, Barbie, who was a contestant on season 1 of Drag Den with Manila Luzon, one of the first few transgender contestants that we've had on mainstream media. So let's ask ourselves, how is popular culture a gender and development concern? So if we go back to the 5th definition of John's story, popular culture is really a site of struggle between the resistance of subordinate groups and dominant groups. So popular culture actually can be referred to as the normal way of doing things because that's what's shown to us by the media. That's what we pick up from the newspapers. That's what we see on our social media. So there is that implication that because it is popular, it is the correct or the normal way of doing it. So this actually ties back to the idea of hegemony or power relations, since popular culture may be considered a way of life that is dominant over the others. Hence, popular culture can be linked to concepts and ideas related to gender, such as heteronormativity, which is a worldview that frames heterosexuality as the default, and everything around in society is centered around that. Then, of course, we have the gender division of labor, why some jobs are for men, other jobs are strictly for females. Why do we even have that division in the first place? Then, of course, we talk about concepts such as sexual orientation, gender identity, and expression, among others. So definitely, popular culture is a gender and development concern because if we go back to the definition, it's really showing us the reality of life and how certain groups in society continue to be marginalized by structures in society. So films and series are something that we all love. I'm sure over the weekend, this coming weekend, we'll probably go back to our Netflix watch list and check off a couple of films and series there that we have to watch. No? So popular culture products such as films and series signal the realities of life and society. So when we start normalizing the representation of marginalized identities, such as members of the LGBTQIA+ community, we are in effect saying that, hey, you know what? It's okay that such identities exist. And further to that, they must be accorded the same respect that straight members of society get. So the media, in effect, legitimizes such marginalized identities by mere representation alone. So queer imagery in mainstream media really does have the power to change perceptions and attitudes of society. So let's take a look at some of the queer representations we've had in Pinoy media over the past years, and decades even. So again, as a reflection of society, the media plays an important role in educating people on the existence of gender and sexual minorities. So the Philippines mainstream media has brought about a newfound understanding of these identities in movies and series simply by showing that they exist. So in the case of, for example, Die Beautiful, we had Paulo Ballesteros who played a transgender woman, and we saw how the queer community came together when Paulo passed away in the movie. Then My Husband's Lover and Too Cool to Be Forgotten featured gay characters, and this was the first time in mainstream media that we had a show entirely based on the sexuality of these characters. Then Baka Bukas and The Rich Man's Daughter actually highlighted lesbian characters. So we would say, okay, great, no, we have representation now for gender and sexual minorities. But the problem there is these representations have been very limited compared to the number of Filipino films and series that are released every year. So let's say from 30 to 60 movies and let's say 60 to 80 series produced by so many different production companies, iilan lang ang para sa mga queer community. Probably one or two media there that is really centered for the queer community. And one thing that I loved that Kyle mentioned is that representation is not equal to depiction. Because while we may have representation on mainstream media, there is the question of how are they actually depicted? So most of the queer representation in media so far have painted stereotypical caricatures, and they also follow heteronormative ideals of masculinity and femininity. And going back to my title, I Barbie. So that's actually an expression that we use in the Philippines to sort of convey disappointment for somebody who expresses effeminacy, somebody who is feminine in the eyes of many people, and for them it's sayang or it's a wastage for you to be a queer individual. So for a lot of people, effeminacy is actually frowned upon, and yet we see movies like Girl Boy Bakla Tomboy, played by Vice Ganda, showing us the four categories of queer identities in the Philippines. But these categorizations are very reductionist because girl boy, bakla tomboy still exist on binaries. What about those identities that are located in the spectrum? So in effect, the media plays a part, sure, in telling us that these identities exist, but at the same time, it makes all of those other identities invisible because they do not get represented. Or if they are represented, then they're pretty much comical, just in the way we have, for example, Dolphy, who is the king of Filipino comedy films, with Ang Tatay Kong Nanay, Ogie Alcacid and Michael V, who frequently don female clothing. Then we have the trio from Eat Bulaga, which is the longest running entertainment show in the Philippines, acting up as grandmothers. But you would see there that it's not really wholesome representation for the queer community because they're really reduced to being the butt of everyone's jokes. And that's not how the queer community would like to be represented or depicted. So in this regard, members of the Filipino LGBTQIA+ community turn towards Drag Race and Drag Den. So these two shows are queer reality television shows that feature drag queen contestants. So both of these shows are queer content that is produced by, created for, and featuring queer individuals. So since the premiere of Drag Race Philippines and Drag Den with Manila Luzon in 2022, Filipino drag queens have enjoyed the limelight in mainstream media. So much to the point that they have now proven themselves to be entertainers and performers of international caliber. How do we say that? Well, they've been around the world doing drag shows in pretty much every country, and earning international awards. So, seems so good so far. What exactly is the problem, you might ask? Okay, just last week, we had Marina Summers open the stage for Miss Universe 2022. Marina Summers is notable for being the runner-up on Season 1 of Drag Race Philippines and also a runner-up on RuPaul's Drag Race UK versus the World. And she really solidified herself as, an international caliber queen because she not only knows how to sing or dance, she's not only a performer, she's an all-around queen. So for a lot of people who saw her on screen for Miss Universe Philippines, that was, I would say, and I would argue, a pretty defining moment because we are opening the space to include queer people in spaces that have previously rendered them invisible. As a matter of fact, when Marina Summers came to stage, she opened up with Marina Summers, the Philippines. And this is actually alluding to how a lot of queer kids would look up to beauty pageants to see stories and narratives of empowerment, no? And like Marina Summers said, this is for every baklang chikiting or every queer kid that dreamt of saying this iconic line. Oras na para tayo ang rumampa. It's our time to strut the runway. So, pretty defining moment, very pivotal. But one look at the comment sections on Facebook and every other social media platform that has shared this milestone, you would see there many extremely homophobic and many extremely transphobic comments. And that's actually the ironic situation in the country. Because while we claim to say that queer identities have long existed in the country and we accept them, the very fact that we still have a lot of prejudices in comments shows us that, we're not really accepted but more tolerated. Those are two different things. Okay, further to my point, I'm sure you've all heard of Taylor Sheesh, who is making waves around the globe, no, for her impersonation of Taylor Swift. And so Taylor Sheesh is a baby drag queen who does her own rendition of the Eras tour with the Errors tour. And quite recently, actually, she was assaulted in a performance that she had for the Eras tour. So that just goes to show, if Taylor Sheesh and Marina Summers, who are prominent pop culture icons, are not exempt from the prejudices of society, how much more for people who don't have the privilege for mainstream media visibility? Imagine what their life would be on a daily. The fact that these people are not exempt from discrimination, from harassment, and from transphobia, and from homophobia, and all other forms of discrimination. Now, there's also merit to talk about what's inherently problematic in drag shows. So as much as RuPaul's Drag Race has brought queer representation to the mainstream, it has also been criticized for reinforcing the heteronormative gender binary. Why? Because we only see one form of drag featured on the show, which is drag queens. So RuPaul's Drag Race does not successfully challenge dominant heteronormative values, as it calls upon both the contestants and the audiences of the show to conform to a post-feminist ideal that places normative femininity on a pedestal and reaffirms the gender binary. When we talk about normative femininity, here we mean to say the show wants big boobs, cinched waists, and big hips to have that Coca-Cola body. Anything other than the Coca-Cola body, it's frowned upon. It's actually criticized, and those who are androgynous or genderqueer contestants are eliminated right after, like Milk from season 6 of the US franchise. So there you see that there's really a preference for the show to judge these contestants based on a template that has come from society of what it means to be a woman, or what it means to be, what it means to have that perfect female illusion. On top of that, there's a lack of diversity in the cast because mostly the cast consists of gay cisgender male. So where are the transgender? Where are gender non-conforming identities? No, there's so many out there who are made invisible and who are othered just because they don't identify as gay males, right? So over the past few seasons, we've seen an increase in inclusivity and inclusion, but for a lot of people, that still comes across as tokenistic, okay? So what naman is the social problem in Filipino society tied to drag race and drag queens? Okay. So before we go to that, no, Susan Stryker defined transgender as a movement away from an initially assigned gender position. So whether you're assigned female at birth or assigned male at birth, and if you variate or if you vary from that initial gender position, that's considered as transgenderism. So it's taken as an umbrella term to refer to any and all kinds of variation from gender norms and expectations. But in the Philippines, there are many common misconceptions that people have towards transgender individuals. And the top two are, number one, it has to do with one's sexual orientation. And number two, trans people are just gay men pretending to be women or lesbians pretending to be men, right? These are two different things. How come we're conflating the two? So according to Naomi Fontanos, who is the executive director of Ganda Filipinas, or Gender and Development Advocates Filipinas, there is a common belief that being trans is an extreme form of being gay or lesbian. So that gender identity of being transgender is being confused with sexual orientation. And look at the wording, extreme form of being gay or lesbian. So it really has a negative connotation. So Naomi further goes on to say, parang yun na yung pinakamalalang uri na pagiging bakla o lesbiana. That is the highest form, or that's the most extreme subversion of being gay or lesbian. Tapos maririnig natin sa maraming tao na okay lang maging bakla, basta wag magdamit na pang babae. It's okay to be gay, I guess, in Filipino society, for as long as you don't wear female clothing. Vice versa, okay lang maging lesbiana basta wag magdadamit na pang lalaki. So it's okay to be a lesbian, just don't wear male clothing. So you see that members in Filipino society act as gatekeepers for queer individuals. But who are they to say what should one express themselves as? So matter of fact, we have over here Bibi Gandanghari and Jake Zyrus, who transitioned from their earlier identities of Rustam Padilla and Cherise Pempengo. And they are popular culture icons. And even with that privilege of being in mainstream media, they were for a very long time, and up to now actually, pretty much in public scrutiny. And you would see every now and then memes coming out to poke fun of their gender identity. And that's the sad reality that we are living in today, that people can't seem to respect that identities can change. Gender is not fixed. So yeah, that is actually one of the problems in society. So what this suggests is that Filipinos cannot distinguish among sexual orientation, gender identity, and gender expression. So according to the Gender Bread Person by Sam Killerman, what you have in the heart part, that's your sexual or your romantic attraction towards people. Gender identity pertains to how you identify as in your brain. Cognitively, do you see yourself as male, female, neither, both? Do you switch around? Are you fluid? And expression is how you present yourself to the world. So all of these are different from your sex, which is your biological marker for who you are as an individual, pertaining to your DNA, your chromosomes, your hormones. So gender identity is not equal to sexual orientation, it's not equal to biological sex, it's not equal to gender expression, okay? So because of these confusions of what SOGI means, this can lead to hasty and negative generalizations about the entire LGBTQIA+ community, especially transgender and gender non-conforming individuals. So the SOGI Equality Bill actually is something that for 2 decades now and counting, lawmakers are trying to lobby for, because it actually affords the protection, especially of those who have different SOGI, those who are queer and their SOGI, they're discriminated because of their SOGI. It's really there to protect them. Everybody has SOGI, but queer people know SOGI more because they're discriminated because of their SOGI. So gender-based violence continues to persist in the country. As a matter of fact, several trans and gender non-conforming individuals have been victims of discrimination, prejudice, harassment, bullying, and even in the worst case, murder. Around 50 trans and gender non-conforming Filipinos have been murdered since 2010, but the Fuller Project actually estimates the number may be higher because there have been a lot of unreported and unidentified cases. The one that we all know of is Jennifer Laude, who was a transgender woman who was brutally murdered by an American soldier. So there has been a film that came out recently called Her Ganda, which takes a look at her life and shows to us the reality of what transgender women go in a very heteropatriarchal society like the Philippines. So if you have the time, please do go and watch, because it really shows to us how difficult it really still is for a lot of our transgender siblings. As a matter of fact, the Philippines does not yet have a national legislation to protect the LGBTQIA+ community. And because we don't have that SOGI equality bill, gender-based and SOGI SC-based violence continues to persist in the country. So now let me share with you some of the audience insights that I gathered from the three ICA papers that I presented before. So number one, there really is a push and pull within the fandom. So fans are intrinsically motivated to watch drag shows and support queens in queer spaces such as drag shows and nightclubs. And this is because they really enjoy drag competitions or the reality television genre a lot. Moreover, there's a personal identification. Whether you are a queer member or even an ally, there's that personal identification with the drag queens because the show actually affords a space for the contestants to share about their life stories, and these are empowering messages. At the same time, there are sob stories, but one way or the other, it really tugs at the heartstrings. Furthermore, the show's content is a negotiated space where the audience's understanding of the US franchise vis-a-vis the Filipino iteration converges in admiration for the drag artistry. So again, Filipino queens, they are amazing. As a matter of fact, drag queens from other countries around the world, including the US, look up to the theatrics, to the acrobatics, to all of the performances that Pinoy drag queens have to offer. So they're really up there when it comes to drag as an art form. At the same time, audiences are also appreciative of the franchise's attempt to mainstream LGBTQIA plus causes. Of course, it's important when you have a drag show, it should not just be for entertainment, but it should also talk about the advocacies of the queer community. Simultaneously, though, fans are critical. So coming from the idea of Kyle earlier, that fans don't just accept, they're not passive, they are active decoders of media text. So fans, what they don't like about the show is the insistence for localizing the franchise format. For example, Snatch Game does not necessarily work well in the Filipino context, more because Filipinos are known for sarcastic humor, for that I would say banter that comes very naturally to us, no? So having an American format force fitted into a Filipino context does not usually work that well. Second of all, they don't like the manufacture of forced narratives wherein they get one contestant to fight with another. They'd rather do away with all of those shallow back and forth, the drama, and focus on the more empowering messages. Okay, speaking of empowerment, watching the show actually allows a lot of the people to come out as queer and also explore drag as an art form for themselves. And why do I say this? Because drag is an art form that challenges the heteronormativity of society. Here we have a couple of queer men, mostly queer men, or transgender women coming to the show and exaggerating what gender is, the performance or the performativity of gender. And so that actually legitimizes the existence of marginalized identities and also legitimizes drag as an art form, as a legitimate source of entertainment. At the same time, it shows to us that, these contestants have their own gender and sexuality identification journeys. For example, Akiria Chanel Davenport on US All Stars Season 6 shared with the whole world that she had started to transition as a transgender woman, but midway she decided that it was not for her, and so she reverted back to her male self. Similarly, Blue Hydrangea on Season 1 of RuPaul's Drag Race UK versus the World shared her ambivalent feelings that currently she identifies as non-binary. And so they're not too sure if they will start labeling themselves as transgender or actually start on a sexual reassignment surgery. So seeing how fluid gender and sexuality are, for a lot of queer audiences, that is very empowering because they do not feel alone. They have role models to look up to, and being able to discuss this in the open makes it less of a taboo to come out to their family and friends, and also to explore drag for themselves. But the show is not without criticism because there's still an insistence for normative femininity. So the participants that I interviewed for two of my papers observed that the judges still enforce that Coca-Cola body on plus size contestants. How can you expect that from someone like Silky Nutmeg Ganache? She would need 3 courses just to have that hourglass silhouette versus someone like Bosco, who is standard size or petite, no? It doesn't take much for her to pad her hips and to push up her boobs to come up with that hourglass silhouette. As a matter of fact, in season 1 of Drag Race Philippines, fans were really inflamed when Turing Quinto was up for elimination just because her dress was not too flattering for her shape. And the fact that this comment came from one of the jurors on the panel, who herself is a transgender female and a former contestant on the US season, it really hurt a lot for not just plus size people in the audiences, but for a lot of people that, we are enforcing Western ideals of what it means to be beautiful as a woman on somebody who is Pinoy and who might not necessarily consider having that hourglass silhouette as something that is the norm. On top of that, a lot of the participants actually called out the show for not featuring other types of drag, like drag kings or bio drag or gender fuck drag or even alternative or creature drag, So all of these drag identities are made invisible because of the show's insistence for normative femininity, which then, of course, would mean only drag queens can apply. Where are the drag kings? Where are the other types of drag? Because if drag is a performance of gender, then there should not be just one depiction of drag. Make it open, make it inclusive. Okay, so that's really the sentiment they have from the show. Now, some people were actually very critical of how Drag Race started including more transgender contestants, like let's say Gia Gunn for All Stars 4, or how after so many years we finally had our first transgender winner with Kylie Sonicla for All Stars 6. So for a lot of the participants, it felt that it was more to rehabilitate their anti-trans narrative, wherein RuPaul himself likened transgender contestants as athletes who dope or take steroids in the Olympic Games. So imagine having that really negative image towards transgender contestants. But now, participants nonetheless tolerate these production choices because it still gives mainstream visibility to identities that might not have the chance to be represented in mainstream media for other shows. Where else do we have queer characters come together to celebrate what it means to be queer? Project Runway, maybe. America's Next Top Model, hardly. There's only been one transgender contestant so far. So where else? Where else is the space for queer people to come, if not Drag Race and Drag Den? Okay, we also did some readings from closed Facebook groups, and what we saw there was that a lot of the readings are polysemic, meaning to say they're subjective realities. There's not that one objective truth. As a matter of fact, there are so many pluralistic meanings and sense makings that the fan communities make of a show like Drag Race. So, for example, a lot of them were questioning why Maddie Morphosis was cast as the first ever straight cisgender man on the show. He is a white cisgender man, and that's actually a representation of why drag started in the first place, because queer people back in New York, in USA, were discriminated against by white males. So why are we giving that space that is meant for queer performers to someone who is white and someone who is straight? The others felt that it was okay to push that that envelope or to push that box or to push that narrative. But for a lot of people, they would rather have much seen more headlines, more news about the 5 transgender contestants who were also on the same season. So Bosco, Carrie Colby, Cornbread the Snack Jete, Willow Pale, who went on to win the season, and Jasmine Kennedy. Mas dapat sila yung na-feature versus Maddie Morphosis, according to the participants in the Facebook group. But there were also active renegotiations, meaning to say, the consumption of popular culture also grows with our understandings of what is depicted in these popular culture products. So before, if people were against the inclusion of Maddie Morphosis, now they're actually championing for her to appear in an All Stars future season because they really seen her genuine allyship on her Give It To Me Straight YouTube channel, where she invites Drag Race alumni as guests and they talk about what's important to the queer community. Maddie Morphosis is also partner is also a drag queen. So you really see that they're in it not for the profit, not for the capitalist consumerist angle, but really to help forward the advocacy of the entire LGBTQIA plus community. One thing that fans pointed out was that drag as an art form is independent of one's gender and sexuality. As a matter of fact, drag can also be independent from the artist. So if Irish were, for example, to start drag, she could do that. She could play up the exaggeration of what it means to be male or female or neither or both. Same with Kyle, same as me. But what drag cannot be separate from is an acknowledgement of its origins in queer history and queer politics, which brings me to my last few slides. So consistent with the proposition of Kim Christian Schroeder, which is an expansion of Stuart Hall's reception theory, active audiences go beyond ideology in categorizing their readings of representations. They don't just accept, oppose, or negotiate hegemonic structures inside text. A matter of fact, they look at what can they do now that they've consumed the text. So you will definitely see now that it's Pride Month, a lot of Drag Race fans will be out on the streets marching with so many other queer individuals lobbying for the passage of the Social Equality Bill. You will see them doing a lot of activism on ground because embedded in their being queer is a push to be a voice for those who don't have their own. So you will definitely see a lot of queer individuals who are also Drag Race fans taking to the street to embrace the show's message of self-expression and confidence while also resisting modes of stereotypical representation and discrimination. Finally, almost all of my participants make use of Drag Race as a queer media text that enables conversations on their identity politics and challenges the norms in society. So drag is political. It doesn't have to be very overt that they talk about politics. The mere fact that there is a gay male who is changing up his gender, to sort of show a female persona is already a political act. Okay, so it doesn't have to always be overt. But participants would still like for the show to talk about SOGI Equality Bill more than just having it as a runway, because that is where the show lacked. It was just a side. It was just a side. It was just pushed to the side. I would say it wasn't really made something that it wasn't beyond the shallow conversation of the SOGI Equality Bill. There wasn't something. There wasn't a profound or in-depth discussion, and that's something that participants would like to see more on the show. So versus Drag Den, it's more subversive because Manila Luzon and even all of the Drag Den contestants from season 1 and season 2, they really go political, hard political. They call out the mistakes of the past and the current administration, and they don't shy away from discussions that are inflammatory. So that's what participants would rather see on Drag Race. Okay, so there are, of course, several areas for future research. Of course, critical discourse analysis of Drag Race and Drag Den. Paratext, like mainstream advertisements. So all my advertising students here, you can always take a look at how do audiences actually decode those advertisements with drag queens. How does that relate to their constructions of meaning? And if you zone out to the macro level, what is the discourse at the society level? So if you go back to Norman Fairclough on CDA, of course, we can also talk about post-colonial examination of drag show elements of conformity versus subversion in the Filipino context. Why, again, is there an insistence to localize an American franchise, can we not have our own iteration that has more Pinoy culture embedded? Then, of course, we have phenomenological and ethnographic accounts of the emergence of drag spaces such as nightclubs, bars, viewing parties, etc. And attached to this, business and management students can also take a look at, for example, what are the factors that would make people want to subscribe to OTT providers like World of Wonder or Paramount, or even what would make people step into a club that has drag brunches. Of course, we have also polyecon research in the professionalization of drag as a commercially viable livelihood. And as what I'm doing already, we can continue audience reception studies, but consider the intersectionalities and nuances of the LGBTQIA plus community. Because as Kyle mentioned earlier, no, that there are many different segments within the LGBTQIA plus community. So it's not correct to just aggregate all of those experiences. What do lesbians feel, for example, about the non-existence of drag queens, kings on the show? It's pretty different from what a transgender audience or fan would, how they would decode the meanings from the show. And finally, case studies for policy making that avoid weird. So Western, educated, industrialized, rich, and democratic samples without acknowledging limitations. Okay, so this is very important because there is already a Republic Act on how indigenous people are represented on media. Indigenous people being marginalized communities. The LGBTQIA plus community is also marginalized, and yet we don't have a media legislation on how they should be depicted. And of course, we also don't have the bigger SOGI equality bill that talks about protection at all levels. So those are the areas for future researchers if they would like to continue the discourse on drag, and how it relates to Filipino audiences. In ending, I just like to leave you with this quotation from a personal friend of mine, JB Canta, who is an international pageant Q&A coach and a Kumu influencer. I always say this every time, that flamboyance or effeminacy is power. And that's why people are afraid of drag queens. People are afraid of people who are not afraid to show who they truly are. Okay? Kaya mabuhay ang mga Barbie sa mga session at sa buong mundo. These are my references. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to shoot me an email at noel.murad@dlsu.edu.ph. Thank you very much for listening.
Okay, thank you very much, Noel, for that very rich discussion. What I gathered really was that because of this very normalized heterosexuality that we impose on society, there are a lot of branches into it, no? That leads to gender roles, policy making, and all. And as a scholar, it seems so there's a lot of burden
There's a
and
lot. Yeah.
because of the examples of the studies that you did, because the problem is really multi-sectoral in a way. So as a researcher, you also have to go into audience interpretation, into activism, into politics. So you could imagine that. No, so we're very grateful to have scholars like you who work on this field, right?
Thank you. Thank you very much, Irish.
Yes. Okay, I think we can now proceed to the open forum. So, if you have any questions, maybe you can raise your hand, or you can put your questions in our chat here, and then we can read them. So, anyone would like to open the floor for a question? But anyway, usually they're still warming up, but I also prepared a question for the two of you. Okay, sige, so I can start now while they are still preparing their question. It seems like since our units of interest would be popular culture, in Cal's case, the shows, the films, and then the drag race. I wanted to ask, would you agree that stereotyping is inevitable and sometimes even necessary for films, for example, like you have pointed out earlier? But if so, if they are necessary at some point, now where would you draw the line? What I'm trying to say is that what are your non-negotiables when it comes to stereotyping? What are your standards when you can say that stereotyping has become now harmful than beneficial? So there. That might be a loaded question, but I hope you can. So, what do you think?
I think I can go ahead, no,
All
Irish
right,
and
go ahead.
Kyle. That is actually a very valid question because uh, going back to my point on token representation, no, every season we would have one Black contestant on Drag Race. We'll have one Latina, one Asian, one very, very old drag queen, one baby drag queen, one who is probably indigenous or ethnic, and one poor queen. And so you would it would seem that it's like a quota that you have to have one for each. It's like a bucket list to show all of these representations. But going back to the point of my participants, that's okay. It's expected that not everyone will fare well in the competition, but the very fact that they are being represented is already opening doors for a lot of other people, no? So I think how I can make this more tangible is remember when we had that entire debate about the Miss Universe fielding transgender contestants, and Miss Spain a few years back was the very first transgender contestant on the Miss Universe platform. And she said, no, I don't have to win this. I just need to be here. Which is pretty much, I think, what we are also hoping na sana these stereotypes or these token representations, while they are an initial first step to opening the doors for a lot of other identities to come forward, hoping that future iterations of the show would dig deeper into their personal lives, into showing the nuances of the experiences that they've had, because everybody has a unique form of discrimination if you go by Kimberly Crenshaw's intersectionality theory, right? So it's very important that we talk about those, no? So sana those stereotypes, there's still some learning that can be shared to the entire world.
Okay, thank you very much, Noel. So that's a good point now that we take it as a first step. And then what's important is that we dig deeper into their stories. How about you, Kyle?
I think on my end, I would focus on the concept of how the film industry or the cultural industry tend to cast. So it's important that, they lead to the so-called typecasting. The problem that we tend to face kasi with the cultural industries that we have, everything is capitalized, commodified, and they're focusing on the political economy in the sense that they need to capitalize on the representations present. That's why in terms of marketing and advertisement, there is rainbow washing, just to make it more inclusive. But the inclusivity there is not really embedded based on the purpose, but rather the purpose is to represent for capitalization. So going back to the stereotypes present, or it's really inevitable. I would say it will be inevitable. Why? Because in the first place, when we get to write the scripts, the characterizations present, we try to ascribe a specific characteristics on the person or the persona of the character. That alone is stereotyping. So this specific discussion that we have now is actually good, because what I wanted to point out here is that I think it's not about the problem of stereotyping, but rather how diverse the stories are present in our consumption. Kasi everything is stereotyped. The people would perceive colors to be stereotyping. The way you are in a space, the performativity of a person is very stereotypical, because there is an ascription, or there is an ascribed way to perform in a given space. So that is also stereotyping, because the policies, there is surveillance that if you go out of this kind of performance, that's a deviance. And the deviance would also mean that you're not following the policies, the guidelines that are set of how you are performing. So I think it's really a complex question to answer, because it lines with different ways and means of a person, the background of the person, the policies present in the structures, the systems, it all aligns to it. So I would directly state and go back that um, stereotyping is inevitable, especially that despite of us trying to be more inclusive about it, we always have this specific hunches on our head. Like with just a person walking, we get to already have this that person is not approachable, or she's the boss because she wears this and that. So we already have this kind of casting in our head, how we try to appropriatize a person in a specific categorization. So one thing that we can directly do, rather than we need different ways of content, stories, narratives, and it's important that in the industry in itself, there is a member of the LGBTQIA plus community whenever there will be representations of the LGBTQIA plus community. And not to mention that the characters present are not really LGBTQIA plus members. So it's important that when we try to cast our, whenever they try to portray something, it should be aligned with the persona or personality or the typecasting that we are stating, because that's the real way to portray. That's the real way to state that this person has a narrative, and that person belongs to the community, so the narrative is valid. So that's my take about it.
Okay, thank you very much for that. And that's a very concrete suggestion, no? At the end of the day, that if you're going to cast someone, that someone should have the positionality for it. And I like what you said about when we stereotype, that's okay, that's representation. But if there is a purpose that is beyond representation, which is like what you said, capitalizing on these representations, then maybe that already invalidates that somehow the intent not to represent. Yeah, and thank you very much for that, Kyle. I think Doc Gwen has a question as well. Doc Gwen, go on.
Mine is actually a takeoff of what the two of them said. And it seems to me that I see permutations. Kyle was my student in political economy. Noel was my student on the undergraduate level. The point here being is I'm an advocate of change. And until the SOLVE bill is passed, people will just have to keep on pounding until they become recognized. Parang they have to go out of their shells, self, because until they do so, people just trample on them. And self-worth is important in gender identity. And you're correct, Kyle. It's the culture industry. It's because this is how media framed them. This is how media wanted it, so that it will sell, so that there will be more moviegoers, so that it will win awards, and everything is commodified. But how do you counter that in a world where Karl Marx no longer lives, but his ideal still lives on? Because it's still very much true up until this present time, and it takes an advocate, not just in words, but an advocate by showing your real you, and let just people accept you. My take on the matter is, who are they to judge, right? So this entire discussion, you've focused on micro solutions, you've focused on, but this takes something beyond that. It has to be taken at a level where political will has to come into the issue. Because until then, all these discussions, debates, and controversies, there will never really be. And why do we have to subscribe to Thailand when we have our own? Why do we have to, diba? Lagi tayong consumers. When we already know that we are not only consumers, we ourselves can be producers. So let's start producing as well, to re-educate people, to make them understand, and eventually to make them accept. Because making them accept, hopefully, will make that community be recognized and fully recognized. It's just communication as a scholarship. All these decades, we've never really been seen as a discipline, as anthropology is seen, as political science is seen. But then we keep on doing it. We keep on doing it because we know in due time people will see that indeed ours lies at the center of all these things, it's interdisciplinary, it's multidisciplinary. So we'll take it to that level. We'll take it if we have to, we'll make noise to the point of bringing it at a regional level, not just us consuming what they have, but them consuming what we produce in the Philippines. So they see our realities. They see it from our point of view. And congratulations to the both of you. I'm really, really so proud of what you have become, and I am confident you will even exceed what I had done so far. So I will lower my hand now. So the other graduate students may ask questions. Don't be ashamed. This is a forum for us to learn from each other. It's not about age. It's not about expertise.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay, I think that's it. So, yeah, thank you for that, Doc Gwen. And I agree. It's difficult in a way that you really need political will, no? Anyone who has a question is still warming up. I think we can. I think I have another question from a perspective or a researcher myself, no? And political will coming from Doc Gwen's idea on, I mean, point on political will. No, the thing for us now, we are all advocates. I mean, for you, for example, advocating for SOGI. Me, for example, I'm advocating for media literacy. One difficult thing is that for us to be able to catch the political attention, they would require some sense of evaluation, implementation, specific measures, no, specific frameworks that we can use, no, and based on my limited exposure to queer studies, feminism studies, one of the challenges would really be a specific framework for us. No, for that topic. No, we use cultivation theory. We have Hall. We have of course we have queer scholars that we look at, but somehow can you share some challenges on how to, the tools that we need, the frameworks, the methodologies that we need, no? So what are your challenges as scholars, no, doing this field, no, of study? Maybe we can begin with Kyle naman this time.
Okay. Okay. So I think in my end as a researcher, one of the problems that I see with communication studies is that well, of course, we've been discussing about Western theories, that there's a need for us to indigenize and everything. I think one of the problems that we have here is that um for us to really produce a theory, there's a politics and research, and we need to understand that there's if you have published this already, so you tend to be the spearhead of the scholarship. Okay, so it's easier for you to create, but most of our studies, they tend to see it, they see descriptive studies to be very, very shallow. So some in communication studies, but the thing is that in terms of descriptive studies, okay, it's actually a start of knowing what is happening within the phenomena, and so that there's a need for them to extend towards how, for example, in text, just like what I did and what Prezo did, right? We see the drag, the comics as a text. So we created our own analysis, the interpretive aspect and the descriptive aspect based from our own theories. But then again, for us to really line up the descriptive aspect, there's a need for us to understand the reception also. So that's what Prezo did, to line up whether is my analysis aligning to what the readers are seeing or reading, right? So that it will then turn over that if they would agree, then both of you get to criticize already the author, the performer. Okay, so it's a tripartite sense. So the author or the text, then you as the researcher analyzing it, and then the agreement or disconformity of the audience. Now, going back to the problems we have here in the theories, um, I think one of the problems is that um, we are well embedded into, using theories on our own, not rather exploring on what we call on methodological frameworks on how to understand it. And again, when it comes to frameworks, for example, in development studies, I would always look at that when we are writing something, everything should be participatory. Okay, the means of participatory with the problems of MIL, I'm also focusing on the way we try to eradicate, or not eradicate, but somehow improve the way people see news or information, or dissect news and information, is that we need to make a stance also. Okay, whenever we get to see if misinformation, disinformation in media, we need to create our own stand that this is not true. So we need to make a comment about it. We need to make people involved about it. We do not let it pass. Like you just scroll it, you know to yourself that it's misinformation or disinformation, and then you just scroll it down. The thing is, you need to create a stance because you are active. How about the others that are not? So the more people get to have a shared sense of what is true and what is not, can make people realize that, okay, so this person stated that this is not true, another person did not disconfirm this, so they could have a saturation point for them to know what is true and not. So similarly with in terms of the way we understand queer representations and realities, I think it's not enough for us researchers to just delve into one. We need another researchers to confirm or disconfirm using other theories. So it's more of like it's a shared notion of us practicing whether this theory gets to understand the phenomenon well in this kind of level. The thing is, we cannot do it as a whole. Again, ang hugot mo, or the way we see things, the reason why we are studying it is based on our realities. And maybe for you, that's not your reality. So you can always disconfirm or confirm it based on your own hugot or realities. And it's important that we get to share this kind of hugots all together to somehow create a grand narrative. Though it is really impossible for us to do that. But having the different narratives from different people, researchers, understanding the phenomena will make us understand what we can do in terms of the policies, how we can act about it. And again, going back, it should be a participatory. This descriptive studies doesn't end there. Because if we are going to collect this descriptive studies all together, it will create an understanding what's the problem in this given space or in this given realities of the person, that we can make it more inclusive for them by doing policies at the end. So I think that that's something that I would share, and I hope that it makes sense based on the question.
Yeah, that's good, no? My question was somehow putting a pressure on researchers to have some kind of a structure from which to analyze the topic. But like what you have pointed out, there are topics that are meant to be understood in a descriptive way because we don't understand it fully yet. And that why are you going to the explore the understanding stage if you can describe it yet? So that's a very good point. And what you talked about being inductive in a way that we compare our study with other researchers using different theories, no? And at the end of the day, maybe we can get a community agreement, which is the purpose of interpretive studies, right? And then therefore we can create change through participatory means. So I think that's a great answer, really. Thank you very much, Kyle. How about you, Noel?
Okay, so I just wanna I would like to jump off from some of the points that Kyle also mentioned, no? Because he was able to encompass a lot. But I think when we talk about frameworks or like theories that we can use for popular culture with an intersection for queer studies, the default would be queer theory, intersectional theory, reception theory, post-colonial theory. But if you think about indigenizing frameworks to actually analyze Filipino culture and like yung baklaan, for example, in the context of the Philippines, we can look no further than Psikolohiyang Filipino because there is the concept of kapwa and di kapwa, one of us, one of them, or not us, right? And then also the idea of pakikipagkapwa, which is the modes of actually trying to sustain that kapwa, that community of kapwa members. I think you can also analyze it with that, no? So while there is that pressure to eventually come up with our own communicative, psychological, sociological theory, we can always complement Psikologiyang Pilipino with theories that have been borrowed from the West because to be fair, we are talking about it. The rich, thick description is coming from the author's own positionality as a researcher and hopefully as a member of the queer community, din, no? So yeah, that should already be good. The other thing that I would like to your point, actually, Irish, that there's so many talk about popular culture. You really can interrogate it from any discipline. So the idea of Doc Gwen of the multidisciplinariness, the inter and the transdisciplinariness, you really get to appreciate that because different perspectives will definitely have different foci or focus on how to interrogate the research problem. And that brings about a better understanding of the entire phenomenon. So for example, communication and media, we will be taking a look at texts and reception, encoding, decoding. But from a sociological and psychological perspective, we take a look at how it actually informs our cognitions or how these patterns of behavior spread through entire communities. So I agree. With a topic that's so vast like this, it can be informed by a lot of many different disciplines. Just to share also, no, Irish, going back to your question, what are some of the personal challenges that we faced in doing research? No, I think a lot of queer researchers, I feel like there is that it's like our heavy cross to bear because we're doing this for the entire LGBTQIA plus community in the hopes that these are not just published articles that are behind the paywall but are open access. So it's for the widest dissemination of people because what use is research if we do not get to share it with the world? No, and all of these findings that we have from comics, from TV shows and from films, they're really there to let people know that, with a change of perception, with a change of attitude, that can really help the world become more inclusive for everyone, if we become more inviting of queer identities, of identities we've never had the opportunity to interact with or we've never heard of. Like we have that open mind and open ears and open hearts to accept those identities. My personal challenge in doing these queer studies, and I think you know this, Irish, from our previous conversations, but there has been a tendency to straight explain um, the theories and the methods that I use for my queer research. And it's just, I would say, pretty disappointing when you try to explain why it should be this way, but there's an insistence for how traditional research should go, and one that's not too sophisticated or sensitive to the nuances of the LGBTQIA plus community. So I've had instances where there was a roadblock because this is what I wanted to do, but the higher up would say no. There is an insistence to do this other theory, which has nothing at all to do with the queerness of the experience, or the entire phenomenon. Add to that, of course, the tension in the paradigms, quantitative tayo, ha? Bakit? We're not so much about generalizing the experiences of queer people to entire populations, but the insistence of having that positivist mindset. So those are the experiences that I've encountered, the challenges I would say that I've encountered in the academe so far. But I guess just like our queer siblings, no, talagang lumalaban sila. Laban lang ng laban. So kami rin as researchers, we have to put our foot down and tell us, no, this is what I want, this is the vision, and this is how I'm gonna do it because this is what makes sense the most to explain the experiences of the community and how do we actually let people know of these unique points of marginalization and also points of empowerment. So yun. Yeah,
Correct.
that's what I would like to share.
Thank you very
Irish.
Yes, I understand. These are real experiences, no? And I personally am a witness with that, no? As we have, as Noel have shared, no? It's good now that we can realize that like what Noel shared, it's we can take from collaborative projects, no, psychology, sociology, and if we want to make it unique to us, we should look no further than we have our own Psikolohiyang Pilipino. So thank you for sharing that. I think we have a question from one of our participants. If I may read it. This is from Gen Ragunton. Thank you very much. The question is, given all these wonderful insights, what now is the current situation, status of the queer community and the PH? Has it improved over the years? What, if at all, in your opinion, is the foreseeable future for this community, and what else can we contribute to normalizing queerness as scholars ourselves? So that is a lot of questions. Thank you for thinking of all of this. Maybe for our speakers, maybe you can focus on one aspect, or if you would like to answer everything, that should be totally fine as well. Who would like to start? Okay, you can
Sige.
take.
Ako
Okay,
na
go ahead.
magsa-start.
Okay,
Ayan.
go ahead.
I think what's great about the current context of the LGBTQIA plus community in the Philippines that we get to see and recognize the problems internally, because that's something that I think is quite blurred in the past, or should I say that a lot of researchers get to delve out more on just the usual problems. And again, babalik ako dun sa, I'll go back to the discussion that we had, yung sa sabi ni, what is being discussed by Prezo a while ago, that, everything, why do we need to quantify things? So the thing is, in terms of the narrative of the LGBTQIA plus community, somehow they are becoming, and they are already coming out of the closet. The problems in itself is coming out of the closet. Now, the thing that we can do here, I would directly say, is that the community is ready, okay, somehow prepared for the change within the system. What is not ready is the administration. And the reason for that, I would say, is because they are still from the conservative traditional aspect. And I'm not saying that they need to be eradicated, but rather on the level that, some of us, those people, specifically our generation, needed to be seated in power to really make the policy progress, okay, to make things more possible. And I think despite of the problems with, the soggy bill and everything to be passed on, the rights of the people, if the system cannot do it, why don't we incorporate it in the microsystems that we have? And that's one way for us to really penetrate within the system. Okay, going back to the system in itself, the society, start at home, then the community, and go broader in the aspect. It doesn't necessarily mean that it needs to be a policy, a guideline for you to treat someone correctly, or for you to apply the soggy thinking or perspective. It's a need for us to really act it out. We need to really practice it in our own sense, the Gemeinschaft and the Gesellschaft, the public space and the private space, because the way we try to incorporate it in the private space is a way for us to expand the space to the public, okay, specifically to the work and such. And again, policy is important. Incorporating these policies to structures, to systems, is very vital for us to really make progress. But one way to progress with this kind of equality is from us individuals, and expand it to the communities that we have there.
Okay, thank you very much for that wonderful answer, Kyle. So that's good, no? The microsystems in the first at the end of the day, no? Thank you. How about you, Noel?
Okay, thank you so much, Jen, for these questions. No, napaisip talaga ako dito eh. But yeah, so I think the current situation right now in the Philippines, we're all enjoying. I would be lying if I said, as an ACA fan, as a scholar and a fan, the mainstream visibility that we have right now for our queer brothers and sisters, no, it's there, it's visible. It's becoming more wholesome. Depictions are becoming more inclusive. So let's enjoy it, no? Hopefully it's not something that's gonna be temporary. Sana we have that space where more queer storytellers are telling their own queer stories, no, like we're thankful for the likes of Direct Rod Singh. We're thankful for the likes of Ice Segura, you know, for opening all of these opportunities for queer performers to come and share their art with all of us. So I think it has definitely improved. Think about all of those movies where drag was depicted as, you know, satire or comical, and really just the butt of everyone's jokes. And now they're frontlining, and they're opening up performances on world stages. That's a big deal, no, for a lot of Filipinos, not just queer people, but Filipinos at large. So I would say let's enjoy this mainstream visibility that we have, but at the same time, while there is now that awareness of the existence and the proliferation of queer identities and queer spaces in the Philippines, let's continue fighting for the SOGI Equality Bill, because I do definitely agree with Dr. Pusta that for as long as the SOGI Equality Bill is not going to be passed, it's only going to make people advocate for it even stronger. And rightly so, because it's been what, 2.5 decades? Why is this the longest bill that's pending in Congress? There have been so many legislations that have been passed that are not really of that national urgency. And yet here we have something that affects a lot of people. People who I would even argue are still in the closet. This would definitely give them that protection that they're clamoring for. So why withhold this from them? No. So in my opinion, what is the foreseeable future for the community, and how we can contribute to normalizing queerness? Really hoping and praying that we have more allies in both Congress and Senate. It's not enough that we have Risa Hontiveros. It's not enough that we had Lenny Robredo before. We had Geraldine Roman, the first ever transgender congresswoman. We're still looking for something tangible that would show her genuine concern for the LGBTQIA plus community. Mas lumalabas na si Mayor Joy Belmonte ang may pakialam sa community with the same-sex partnerships, no, and the benefits that she's afforded in QC. So hopefully, yeah, tama naman, we started the micro system, but eventually it has to be a national bill so that everybody, regardless of what island they are in the Philippines, will have the same equal rights as their heteronormative peers, colleagues in society. So tayo naman as researchers, I would definitely encourage cross-cultural research to show what legislations have, for example, been seen to effectively incorporate queer individuals in society. Take a look probably also at how to professionalize drag, maybe. Can it be a livelihood for queer people? Other things that I would also like to put out there into the world and manifest. Research teams from different universities, and I'm thankful for SEAMSA for this opportunity to have met Kyle, no? Because this way we can actually come up with collaboration projects and take on, more research topics, more ideas that can be interrogated on a national scale, and not just samples of NCR, because that's what's convenient for most of us. No, you always use the location where you're present. But yeah, definitely, there's a lot of exciting things in the future for the LGBTQIA plus community. Hopefully, things that are very progressive for the entire Filipino society, not just queer people. Yun.
Okay, thank you very much, Noel. And that's a good way to end the forum that we have, no? I mean, our speakers have been sharing some critical views about our pop culture, our films, no? But at the end of the day, when you ask them, they are hopeful. They encourage us to celebrate these things that were taboo before are now being celebrated today. So that's very good to hear. Thank you very much, Kyle and Noel, and thank you, Jen, for those questions. Okay, so okay,
Kasali ka.
wait, let me.
Sino naman yan?
Okay, thank you. Okay, so before we end, we would like to award certificates of appreciation for our, let me spotlight. Ayan. Okay. Award the certificate of appreciation. No? This SEAMSA certificate of appreciation is awarded to Kyle Patrick de Guzman for imparting his valuable insights as a speaker at the Emerging Scholars Forum on Sexual Orientation Prejudices given on the first day of June 2024. I'll take a photo. A screenshot. Smile, Kyle. Okay. Thank you. And then, let me change the spotlight to Noel. Yan. Okay. So this SEAMSA certificate of services of appreciation is awarded to Noel Said Nurad for imparting his valuable insights as a speaker at the Emerging Scholars Forum on Sexual Orientation Prejudices given on the first day of June 2024. Let me take a screenshot. Thank you very much, Noel. Okay.
Thank
Again,
you.
thank you. Again, thank you for your generosity of time and knowledge. As we end this forum, allow me to just share a message from Dr. Alexander Clam, the Executive Director of SEAMSA and the Managing Editor-in-Chief of the Southeast Asian Media Studies Journal. Dr. Clam, unfortunately, is not able to... Hello? Yes? Yes, Doc Gwen?
Yeah. Can we have the opportunity? Can we have a group photo opportunity
Okay.
with the
With everyone.
Yeah, with everyone. So I'll just take it. At the count of 3, please hold on because I don't know to which panel you belong.
Kyle, I think you need to stop sharing for a while so that we can put into a gallery. Okay, yeah, we can have a photo. If everyone if it's okay to turn on your cameras for a while, we invite you to do so that we can take a photo.
Let's go, LaSalle kids. And everyone else also in the panel.
You're going to take the photo, Doc Gwen?
Camera.
I can also take
sige,
Irish.
pwedeng kahit sino.
Okay.
Okay.
Sige
na lang.
All right.
Sa kanya na
So, yes, okay, so if it's okay for everyone to share their camera so that we can picture your beautiful faces with us. Okay.
And with SEAMSA.
Yeah, with SEAMSA. Okay, so at the count of 3, 1, 2, wide the smile, 3. One more. 1, 2. Second panel. 1, 2, 3. Another one. 1, 2, 3. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you very much. All right. Okay, so going back to the message of Dr. Clam, Dr. Clam wishes to extend his gratitude for organizing the special interest group popular culture webinar on sexual orientation prejudice. He hopes that everyone found the discussion insightful. He wishes to thank Secretary Alonzo and Dr. Amalia for creating and disseminating the poster. Further, he extends his kind regards and wishes of success to our 2 speakers, Noel Murad and Kyle Patrick de Guzman, and moderator Irish Talusan. On behalf of the executive board members and the SEAMSA community, Dr. Clam is very much thankful for their willingness to participate in the webinar and for sharing their expertise and insights with all of us. Okay, there we have it. Of course, a big appreciation to everyone here, the students and the future scholars as well of the community. No? We hope to see you in our next activities. Enjoy the rest of the day. Goodbye.
Thank you, everyone.
Hail, hail, alma mater, hail today the star. We'll hold your banner high and bright, a shield of green and white. We'll fight to keep your glory bright, and never shall we fail. Hail to be our alma
Okay, goodbye, everyone.
Thank you so much, Irish, Noel, and Kyle.
Thank you very much, Doc, for the
Following the
opportunity.
recording.
Thank you. You
Bye-bye
can
po.
stop the recording now.
Yes.